Hello chess friends, and welcome to my channel where I show you my favorite games. And today I want to show you a very famous game, but just want to offer you my take on it. It's a game that is called Opera chess game, played by Paul Morphy and two French aristocrats that played against uncrowned world champion Morphy while watching opera in Paris. And I think that makes that game even more exciting and fascinating, that Morphy was able to produce such a genius game while just watching opera. The game started with e4, e5, and we quickly enter Felidor defense, d4. So why this game is so good? In my opinion, because really, from the first move until the end of the game, every move that Morphy played was really a developing, an activation kind of move, and every move was charged with a development, with a threat. So knight f3 and now d4. So you see, Morphy quickly opens his bishops. His opponent's been denied, and after the trade in the center and of the bishop for the knight here, I think we come for the first instructional moment of that game. So here Morphy had a chance to capture with the pawn or with the queen. Of course, Morphy chose to capture with the queen because capturing with the queen is it's a more developing move. It activates the queen, whereas if he captured with the pawn, he would not develop any piece. And he continues. Here White has many developing moves. He can develop that bishop, maybe here, maybe the knight, but he develops the light square bishop, and specifically to c4. Why? Because it's a developing move, plus it's a threat, right? Basically threatening scholar's checkmate, and his opponents defended with knight f6. Here Morphy played interesting move, queen b3. It's not developing another piece, but it creates a double attack, attacking the pawn on f7 near the king and pawn on b7, which forced his opponents to defend the more important pawn first near the king. But you can notice that defending that pawn, black blocks his own dark square bishop. Here Morphy could win the pawn, but true to his style, he decided to develop another piece. So actually, if he captured the pawn, that would allow black to trade queens. Check and attacking the queen, so Morphy would have to trade queens. Now, but there are more interesting here at that moment, because here White can play several developing moves. White could castle. By the way, Morphy didn't castle here, and it will be interesting to see a bit later why. He could develop the bishop or the knight. He developed the bishop, pinning that knight, and his opponents quickly rushed to defend the other pawn with c6. And Morphy, again, he could have castled here, but he preferred to play knight c3, and keep that in mind, it's interesting. So you can already see Morphy is ahead in development. He has two very strong bishops. Queen is also very active. The knight is also developed. And what about black? Black has only queen, which is developed, but it blocks the bishop. And also the knight, it's developed, but it's pinned. So basically, black is almost not developed. And here, black decided to push back a little bit, attacking the light square bishop. And of course, here, many of us and many spectators probably of that game expected Morphy to just to retreat with the bishop somewhere, maybe here, maybe here. But of course, Morphy didn't retreat with the bishop, because he perfectly understood very important principle, which comes along with the principle of development. So the other very important principle goes like this. If you are more active, if you already have more pieces that develop than your opponent, it's very important to be aggressive, to try to attack instead of just defending and playing some random moves. So Morphy figured that he had already like 4 active pieces. His opponent, I mean, the knight is not active, queen is also not well placed. So 4 pieces against pretty much no development. He decides to give up, to sacrifice his knight. By the way, not such a huge sacrifice because he got 2 pawns right away. But what's more important, he didn't lose any time retreating. He didn't give up initiative. So he's still kind of on offensive. So knight had to be played to d7. And remember, Morphy chose other moves on previous turns instead of castling, and now we can see why. Because he already could foresee that he will be able to castle queenside, which is better because in that case he also activates the rook immediately, the queenside rook. So you see, every move Morphy played, it was so efficient, it was so economical, it was so charged with development, with threats if it was possible. So his opponents also brought the rook to the center to support the other pinned knight here. And now it's again very interesting moment, because if you notice that there was only one piece at this moment in Morphy's camp that was not active, the kingside rook, which was in the corner. And it's very interesting because when I show this game to my students and I ask them here to try to think how Morphy, try to guess how Morphy activated his other rook, very often, I mean, most of the time I don't get the right answer. And most of the time my students suggest to move the rook to the center, right? Because that's what you learn, that you need to activate your pieces and you want to try to move them towards the center. But if you think about that move, yeah, rook is probably better here, but it's still not very active because it's looking at the back of its own pawn, which we cannot capture. So rook is hardly more useful here than it was in the corner. Then maybe another thing I get suggested here is something like rook lift, like to d2 or d3, with the idea to bring the other rook and to double rooks on the open d file, which I think a very, very sensible idea. Now, Morphy didn't do this either, because also Morphy knew how to appreciate the notion of time in chess. It's time, especially in the opening, is very important. Like in pretty much any other field in life, right? If we can do something faster, it's better. Now, you can try to pause the video and try to guess the move if you're not familiar with the game. The move that Morphy chose was, of course, it's much better. He just sacrificed his rook for the knight on d7, and basically forcing black to recapture with the rook, right? Because this knight is still pinned, so black doesn't want to use the knight because it would lose the queen on e7. So rook capture, and now Morphy achieved, and that's why I love this game also, he achieved perfect situation, perfect development. It's like so aesthetically pleasing to look at this position, because all white pieces, without any exceptions, are developed, active, right? Like beautiful pair of bishops, right? One bishop pins the knight, the other one pins the rook. This rook in the center. No more rooks staying in the corner inactively. The white queen is also pretty good. Now, again, and the other principle I also already mentioned, that when you are more active, more developed, you have to be aggressive. You have to look for coming up with more and more threats. You have to kind of, maintain and develop initiative. And the game was already the game was finished after 2 more moves. Uh, Here Morphy came up with one of the most famous moves in chess history. Well, actually, after he black played here queen e6, offering queen trade, and of course we don't want to trade queens when we down material and when we are attacking. So Morphy, after capturing the rook, now knight was able to recapture because it was not pinned anymore because queen moved to e6 from e7, and now Morphy came up with, like I said, one of the most beautiful moves in chess history. Again, you can pause the video if you like. When I show that game, I like to tell my students that the move that Morphy came up with here, it's like a thunder in the middle of a sunny day, because it's so unexpected, and it's also so strong, so powerful. Morphy sacrificed his queen on b8. Obviously, queen sacrifices are always spectacular, but even more so when it's also a very good sacrifice, a very good, strong chess move. And here it is, because now it doesn't leave black any choice except to capture that queen, except to accept the sacrifice. But of course, when black accepts the sacrifice, Morphy delivered his beautiful checkmate. And again, it's so aesthetically pleasing position to look at. Look, white has only 2 pieces against black's 4 pieces. But these 2 pieces, they're super efficient, and together they cooperating together to deliver the checkmate. Right? The rook delivers the checkmate, bishop supports the rook, nothing less, nothing more. Super efficient, beautiful. Uh, I think that this really amazing game, and I hope you really enjoyed it if you were not familiar with that game. So please wait for my next video, where I will share with you more interesting games and more spectacular games, and will offer you my commentary on them. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.